Transform your pain, the power of letting go. What if I told you that they never truly left? You might think they have moved on, happily living in someone else's life while you remain trapped in the aftermath of what once was. You find yourself replaying those moments, the words exchanged, and the feelings that slipped through your fingers, haunting you and gnawing at your peace of mind. But let me pose a question: who really possesses the power in this situation? Is it the one who fixates on every detail, endlessly questioning and torturing themselves with "what ifs," or is it the one who walks away without a backward glance? Right now, you may feel a deep sense of betrayal, as if a part of you has been violently torn away. It feels like everything you built together has been reduced to nothing more than a mere specter in your thoughts. The most painful part is the belief that they no longer care, that you have been erased from their memory as if you never mattered at all. However, here's the reality: you never truly lost them because they were never genuinely yours. They were merely a reflection of your own attachment, a projection of what you wished to believe. Now that they are with someone else, you might convince yourself that it signifies your inadequacy, that you have somehow failed, and that the person they chose possesses qualities you lack. But what if I told you that none of this is real? What if I said that the moment you cease to care is the moment they begin to question everything? You see, people only hold power over you when you allow them to. They move on more swiftly because they think you are still watching, still hoping, still trapped in your feelings. But what occurs when you refuse to play that role? When you stop waiting, stop needing, and stop seeking validation. That is when the dynamics shift. Pain is an illusion. It feels intense and unbearable because you have convinced yourself that they were the ultimate prize, the destination, the reward at the end of your journey. But that was never the truth. The real reward lies in the person you become when you let go. When you no longer chase after someone, no longer seek validation, and no longer define your worth through someone else's choices, you begin to master the art of detachment. When you embrace true stoicism, you will not be the one left behind. Instead, you will be the one they remember, the one they regret losing. This journey has never been about them, it has always been about you. By the time we conclude this discussion, you won't just move on, you will transform into someone they could never forget. Now, let me ask you this: what if by the end of this video, you had the power to rewrite your own narrative? What if you walked away not just healed, but transformed? That moment is approaching, but you must stay with me until the end to seize it. So, take control right now. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notifications, and most importantly, leave a comment below with this affirmation: I am enough. Because you are enough, and by the time this is over, you won't just believe it, you will live it. Now, let's dive in. They may be gone, but they are not forgotten. Let's explore the truth behind why they left. You might think they left you, but what if I told you they actually departed from the version of you that no longer captivated them? The reality is that people do not walk away from what they genuinely value, they only leave when they believe there is nothing left to discover. Have you ever realized that the moment someone thinks they know everything about you, their curiosity begins to fade? When they feel a sense of certainty, that's when their intrigue starts to diminish. Attraction isn't rooted in perfection, rather, it thrives on mystery and unpredictability. It's the idea that there's always more to discover beneath the surface. People are not drawn to what is easily understood, they are attracted to what keeps them guessing and searching for more. However, when you laid everything bare, when you offered them your heart, your soul, and your vulnerability, they no longer had to wonder about you. In their eyes, this meant there was nothing left to pursue. It's akin to finishing a captivating book. Once you turn the last page, the story concludes, regardless of how remarkable or moving it was. Once the ending is known, the book is set aside. Right now, they may believe they have reached the final chapter of your narrative, but what they fail to grasp is that you are not merely a book, you are a vast universe, endless and ever-expanding, filled with depths they have yet to explore. Now, they find themselves with someone else, not because this new person is superior, more successful, or more attractive, but because, for the time being, they represent an unknown variable, a question that remains unanswered. Humans are inherently driven to seek answers. It's the excitement of the unknown that pulls them in, the allure of something yet to be uncovered. Their attraction to this new individual isn't about who they are, but rather about what remains a mystery. This is where many people misunderstand the situation. They panic, spiral into despair, beg, and plead, trying to prove their worth, believing that if they just remind their former partner of what they once had, they will return. However, that's not how it works. The moment you seek validation, you inadvertently affirm their choice to walk away. The reality is that people don't miss those who wait at the door, they miss those who have vanished entirely, the ones they can no longer predict. Consider the nature of fire. A flame is captivating because it moves in unpredictable ways, it flickers, dances, and consumes. But once it is contained and stops moving, it loses its allure. Attraction operates similarly. They were not drawn to you because you were predictable, they were captivated by the energy, the movement, and the depth they believed they could never fully comprehend. When that energy became stagnant, and unpredictability was replaced with certainty, they thought they had uncovered all there was to know about you. But here's the truth, certainty is merely an illusion. No one can ever truly know another person. People don't leave because they have figured you out, they leave because you allowed them to think they had. This realization gives you a choice: you can remain broken and validate their decision, or you can evolve into something they never anticipated. Disappearance isn't about fleeing, it's about re-emerging in a way that takes them by surprise. It's about transforming into someone so focused on your own growth that when they look back, they hardly recognize the person who once stood in your place. The past can be like an echo, one that you can choose to keep listening to, replaying the same memories and regrets, or you can step forward and create something new, something so powerful that it drowns out every whisper of what once was. Ultimately, they didn't leave you, they left the person they thought they knew. The most effective way to prove them wrong is to become the person they never had the chance to know. To truly harness your inner strength, it is essential to recognize that two unyielding forces are at play. Right now, you may feel as though you are under their control, not in a physical sense, nor even in a tangible reality, but rather within the confines of your own mind. Every thought that lingers, every sleepless night spent worrying, and every moment you find yourself scrolling through their social media to check if they are happier without you, is a moment where you are relinquishing your power. The most troubling aspect of this situation is that they do not even need to take any action, your emotions serve as the chains that bind you. The more you allow them to influence your behavior, the weaker you become. However, let me share an important insight: true power resides with those who remain unaffected. The instant you cease to react, the moment you stop allowing their presence to disturb your peace, is when you reclaim your control. This principle is at the heart of stoicism, remaining steadfast while the world around you shifts and changes. Just as fire does not plead with the wind to cease its gusts, it either becomes stronger or extinguishes. If you are waiting for circumstances to change in your favor, you have already set yourself up for defeat. Consider the strongest individuals throughout history. They did not squander their time wallowing in emotions over someone who chose to leave. They grasped a fundamental truth that many fail to understand: emotions are akin to storms, temporary, chaotic, and potentially destructive, but only if you allow yourself to be swept away by them. The storm may rage, the skies may darken, and the winds may howl, but those who remain resolute will eventually witness the sun rise once more. At this moment, they anticipate your pain, they expect you to crumble, to chase after them, to prove that they were more significant than your own well-being. The instant you do so, you validate their beliefs about your worth. They perceive themselves as the prize and you as the one who has lost. But what transpires when you choose not to react? When they look at you and see someone who is unshaken, someone who is not desperate, someone who does not even acknowledge their absence. That is when the balance of power begins to shift. Doubt will creep in, and they will start to question whether they made a mistake. Emotional detachment does not mean pretending you are indifferent, rather, it involves mastering your own emotions to the extent that external factors cannot disturb your inner peace. A mountain remains unmoved despite the howling winds, and the ocean does not plead for tranquility when storms arise. If you can grasp this concept, you will become equally untouchable. The reality is that most individuals are not in search of love, they are seeking control. They want to feel significant, to know they have made an impact, and to believe they can still reach you, even from afar. When they come to the realization that they cannot, everything changes. They will see that your strength has only grown in their absence, prompting them to question everything they once believed. But here lies the true secret: by the time they come to this realization, by the time regret begins to settle in, and by the time they start yearning for what they once had, you will have moved on, not in a visible way, but in a manner that truly counts. You will have outgrown them, evolved beyond the version of yourself that once placed them at the center of your universe. That is when you achieve true victory, for nothing is more formidable than a mind that cannot be manipulated, a heart that does not plead, and a soul that remains unbroken. The moment you stop seeking their validation, you transform into something rare, something untouchable, something that lies beyond their reach. Once you attain this level of self-mastery, it will not only be them who notices, the world around you will begin to align in your favor, as power shifts in your direction. True strength doesn't come from chasing someone, trying to improve yourself for their sake, or waiting around hoping they'll return. It comes from choosing to walk away and never glancing back. The less emotionally invested you are, the more others tend to pursue you, a fascinating quirk of human desire. What changes when you stop caring? When you quit checking their social media, wondering about their life, or waiting for their attention? The answer is straightforward: they finally notice you. Indifference holds a unique power, unsettling, intriguing, and impossible to ignore. Even if they are with someone else, they might assume you'll always be waiting in the background. That false sense of security is why they aren't chasing you. Comfort breeds complacency, predictability kills attraction. But once they sense your absence, that you're no longer orbiting their world, everything shifts. Human nature drives us to crave what feels out of reach. When you were desperate for their approval, you became ordinary. Now, by stepping back, you become mysterious. Your silence creates a void where their validation once lived. They might test you, a cryptic social media post, a casual "how are you" text, anything to see if you still react. Most people falter here, responding eagerly, handing their power away. But the moment you show they still affect you, the game restarts. The key: no reaction. Indifference fuels curiosity. It forces them to question, doubt, and chase, but only if you commit to silence. Build a life so fulfilling that they fade from your thoughts. Here's the paradox: the less you care, the more they want you. Now they are the ones overthinking, replaying memories, analyzing every interaction. When they realize the version of you who once needed them is gone, they don't just miss you, they crave the new, independent you who no longer waits. Walking away without looking back isn't just closure, it leaves them questioning what they've lost. You might think they've moved on, but absence leaves a mark. People don't forget those who impacted them. They might bury the feeling, tell themselves they've moved forward, but that empty space remains. Right now, they assume you're still within reach, a backup plan. But when they realize you've truly left, that's when absence becomes your greatest strength. The person they took for granted is now someone they can't replace. When someone disappears without any explanation, that's when uncertainty begins to seep in. The absence of a person can be incredibly impactful. It compels the mind to fill in the gaps, to ponder, and to question. Humans have an innate aversion to unanswered questions. At this moment, they may feel assured in their choices, convinced that they understood you completely. However, when they realize that you are no longer observing, responding, or pursuing them, a seed of doubt is sown. They start to wonder, why haven't they reached out? Why does it appear as though you've moved on so effortlessly? Did I misjudge them? This single thought, this small crack in their confidence, is often all it takes to shift their perspective. Once someone begins to question their decisions, once they start seeking evidence that they didn't err, they have already lost their grip on the situation. What begins as a fleeting thought can quickly escalate. They may find themselves reminiscing, replaying past interactions, and searching for clues. Suddenly, what once seemed like a straightforward decision morphs into a potential mistake. However, many individuals struggle with this process. They panic, convincing themselves that if they vanish completely, they will be forgotten. As a result, they may resort to lurking, leaving subtle hints, liking posts, or sending indirect messages, all in hopes of rekindling your attention. Yet, this behavior stems from fear and insecurity, not strength. People do not yearn for what is always within their reach, they crave what feels just beyond their grasp. The truly unforgettable individuals are not those who plead to remain in someone's life, rather, they are the ones who depart with a quiet confidence that creates a void in the lives of those they leave behind. This emptiness becomes haunting because it signifies a loss of control. They begin to question whether they were the ones who made the choice to end things or if you were always the one in command. This dynamic is not about manipulation or playing games, it is simply human nature. People rarely regret losing someone who begged to stay, but they will always ponder the loss of someone who left without hesitation. That is the person they cannot easily replace, the one who lingers in their thoughts long after the moment has passed. The reality is that people do not simply move on from absence, they attempt to fill it. They seek distractions, but silence often speaks louder than words, and distance can convey more than any apology. The instant they realize you are genuinely gone, that you are not waiting for their return, is the moment you become unforgettable. Possessing a strong mind and an unbreakable spirit is the essence of emotional control. Many individuals allow their emotions to overwhelm them, letting heartbreak dictate their thoughts and actions, ultimately transforming them into weaker versions of themselves. In contrast, those who master emotional control become unstoppable. Emotions are not the enemy, rather, it is our reactions to them that can be problematic. Pain is an unavoidable part of life, but suffering is a choice. At this juncture, you have two paths: allow your emotions to govern you or learn to govern them. They anticipate that you will crumble, fall apart, chase after them, seek closure, or prove your worth. The moment you do any of these, you validate everything they believed when they chose to walk away. But what if they see nothing? No anger, no sadness, no frantic attempts to win them back, just calmness, focus, and a person who refuses to be shattered by something as fleeting as their absence. That's when doubt begins to creep in, and they start to question everything. The ability to remain unfazed is a hallmark of someone who cannot be easily replaced. True strength is not solely about physical power, it encompasses control. The most formidable individuals in history were not defined merely by their might, but by their ability to maintain composure and clarity in the face of adversity. Individuals who have never truly experienced pain are those who have confronted it head-on, weathered its storm, and refused to let it shatter their spirit. People are naturally drawn to resilience, to those who remain steadfast and composed even when everything around them crumbles. A person who can endure loss and continue moving forward, who doesn't fall apart at the first hint of rejection, is the type of individual who commands genuine respect. And respect, let me tell you, is a far more potent force than love. Love can be fleeting, it can change, it can be as brief as a fleeting moment. But respect endures. It's the lingering feeling that makes them pause and reconsider when they witness your flourishing without them. It's the very thing that causes them to regret ever underestimating you, ever thinking you were just another ordinary person. The mightiest warriors, the most inspiring leaders, the most unyielding minds throughout history, all of them adhered to a single, fundamental principle: mastery over oneself is the ultimate power. The Stoics, those ancient philosophers, grasped this concept deeply. They understood that emotions should never be the ones dictating our actions, that true control over one's life comes from mastering the self. And once you truly grasp this, once you embody this principle, you won't just make them regret leaving, you'll ensure that no one ever again wields that kind of power over you. Why? Because you are not the rain that falls helplessly, carried away by the storm. You are the storm itself. You are the unstoppable force that propels forward, that obliterates weakness, leaving nothing in its wake but progress. And once you become that force, nothing and no one can break you again. 6. Rise above. The transformation begins right now. It might feel as though they've taken something vital from you: your confidence, your sense of self-worth, perhaps even your sense of purpose. It might feel as though they've abandoned you, leaving you with nothing but a void filled with questions and self-doubt. But here's the empowering truth: no one can take away what you've built for yourself. And if they've chosen to leave, it signifies only one thing: it's time for you to evolve, to grow into a stronger version of yourself. Many people become fixated on winning them back. They obsess over reversing the situation, making them regret their decision, proving they made a mistake. But those who truly triumph don't waste precious time dwelling on the past. Instead, they focus their energy on reclaiming themselves. That's the crucial difference between those who remain broken and those who rise above the circumstances. This isn't about proving anything to them. It's about ensuring that the next time your name crosses their lips, the only thing they experience is a profound sense of regret. Not because you played mind games or sought revenge, but because you've transformed into someone extraordinary, someone powerful, someone entirely self-sufficient. They'll finally realize they walked away from something truly irreplaceable. That's the real victory, not getting them back, but becoming so untouchable that they wish they had never left. So, what does this transformation entail? It's quite straightforward. You stop wasting your time. You stop obsessively checking their social media. You stop replaying old conversations in your mind, over and over again. Instead, you focus on building yourself up. You work on improving your physical health, your mental acuity, your sense of purpose. You become the kind of person that others respect, admire, and even aspire to be like. And the moment you make that shift, something remarkable happens. When you focus on yourself, when you start moving forward without hesitation, without doubt, without looking back, you no longer care if they even notice. And ironically, that's precisely when they do. The moment they realize you're thriving without them, the moment they see that you don't need their validation, that's when they begin to question their decision. But by then, it won't matter one bit, because you will have already won. Not by playing their game, but by walking away from it entirely. That is the transformative power of becoming someone they can't ignore, someone they can't forget. The reason you no longer pursue them is not merely because you have moved on, but rather because you have outgrown the relationship. As you elevate yourself beyond your former self, you don't just improve, you become someone who is untouchable. By the time they realize this transformation, it's often too late. They can sense that something has shifted. Initially, leaving felt almost effortless, filled with certainty and confidence, perhaps even a hint of relief. However, as time passes, an unsettling feeling begins to creep in. They find themselves checking their phones, half hoping for a message that never arrives. They scroll through social media, searching for any indication that you are still engaged in their life, still waiting, still circling around their world. But all they encounter is silence and absence. Suddenly, they are the ones left questioning their choices. At first, they might convince themselves that you are merely playing a game, pretending to have moved on. But as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, the reality begins to dawn on them: you didn't just move on, you evolved. You have completely vanished from their life, and even more troubling for them is the fact that you appear to be happier without them. This realization is when regret starts to seep in, accompanied by self-doubt and questions they never thought they would ask. Did I make a mistake? Was I wrong about them? Why aren't they pursuing me? This is the moment many people fantasize about, wishing that if only their ex-partner could recognize what they lost, they would finally find peace. However, this is where many go astray. They misinterpret the situation as a sign to reach out, breaking their silence and welcoming their ex back into their lives. Just like that, the power dynamic shifts once more. The truth is, they are not reaching out because they genuinely want you back, they are merely testing to see if they still have control over you. If you provide them with that validation, they will slip away just as easily as they did before. This is why those who truly succeed in moving on never look back. They grasp a fundamental truth: the moment someone departs, they forfeit the right to return on their own terms. So, when they finally notice your absence, when they reach out, and when they feel the weight of their own decisions, you will discover something even more profound: you no longer care. You are too focused, too disciplined, and too enamored with the person you have become to even consider reverting to your old self. That is when you have truly triumphed. By the time they realize what they have lost, you will be so far ahead that it won't even matter. You will be unshaken and unstoppable, having learned the final lesson in mastery. The game is over, but not in the way you once envisioned. You used to think that winning meant getting them back, proving your worth, and making them see what they lost. Now, however, you understand that true victory was never about them, it was about you. It was about reaching a state where their presence or absence no longer disrupts your peace. That is when you realize you have already won. They sought control and wanted to remain the focal point of your life, even after they walked away. But instead of chasing after them, proving your worth, or waiting for them to return, you did the unimaginable. You walked away, not out of anger or as a strategy, but because you recognized something they never did. Real power lies in indifference. Now, the tables have turned. They are the ones thinking about you, pondering whether they made a mistake. The irony is that by the time they come to this realization, you will be too far ahead to care. This is what true mastery looks like: emotional control, the ability to let go without hesitation, and the understanding that no one, not them, not rejection, and not even the past, holds power over your peace. Heartbreak, no matter how intense, should never be allowed to destabilize your core. History's most resilient individuals weren't those who sailed through life without challenges. They were the ones who transformed setbacks, betrayals, and emotional pain into fuel for their growth. While others faltered, they stood firm, weathering storms with unwavering resolve. And now, you've joined their ranks. There was a time when you believed you needed someone else to complete you, that they were the missing piece to your story. But today, you see the truth: the only person you ever truly needed was yourself. The only validation that matters is the one you give yourself, and the only love worth cultivating is the one you nurture within. They were never your destination, they were merely a lesson, a catalyst for your transformation. Now, as this evolved version of yourself, you no longer seek closure, answers, or external validation. You've realized that those who embody true strength don't wait for permission, they build, grow, and shape their own reality. This is the kind of person the world remembers, not the one who pleaded or lingered, but the one who vanished only to re-emerge as something unstoppable, untouchable, and beyond reach. Your true victory isn't in making them return, it's in reaching a point where their return no longer matters. Because when you truly understand your worth, you know this: your greatest love story isn't with them, it's with yourself. This is your new beginning, your moment to rise, to leave the past behind, and step into your highest potential. You're no longer defined by loss, you're defined by self-discovery, and that is the ultimate triumph. Initially, you might have thought winning meant proving something to them, that if they could only see your true value, everything would fall into place. But now, you grasp a deeper truth: winning was never about them. It wasn't about making them regret, getting them back, or seeking their approval. The real victory was always about you. They expected you to crumble, to linger in the shadows, hoping and waiting for their acknowledgement. In their narrative, they were the protagonist, and you were just a supporting character. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of breaking, you disappeared. Instead of chasing, you elevated. Instead of proving anything to them, you proved everything to yourself. Now, they are the ones feeling the shift. They check their phone, expecting a message that never arrives. They scroll through their feed, searching for signs of your presence, but find only silence, only absence. In that void, something stirs within them: doubt, curiosity. Did I make a mistake? Why aren't they chasing me? Why does it feel like I've lost something I never appreciated? This is human nature. We take for granted what's readily available, assuming the familiar will always remain. But when it disappears, when it becomes distant and untouchable, it gains new significance. The absence of something once certain creates an unshakable unease, because the mind abhors uncertainty. And now, that uncertainty is theirs to bear. The moment you stop caring is the moment you become untouchable. It's the point where you outgrow the person they once knew, and they are left searching for a version of you that no longer exists. The truth is, people don't regret losing those who beg to stay, they regret losing those who vanish without a trace and never look back. Those who take their silence and turn it into power, transforming their pain into growth. You're no longer the person who needs them, waits for closure, or seeks validation. You've become a mind that can't be controlled, a heart that can't be broken, and a soul that moves forward without hesitation. That's the ultimate form of power. This was never about them, it was always about you. Now, you see it clearly: the past is just a lesson, and you're the one writing the next chapter. You're the only main character, and this time, you're beyond the past. There was a time when their absence felt unbearable, when every thought revolved around what went wrong and what could have been. You thought that if they could just see your worth, everything would come full circle. But then something changed, not in them, but in you. You stopped waiting, stopped hoping, and without even trying, you became the person you were always meant to be, stronger, sharper, and untouchable. Not because you forced yourself to move on, but because you finally understood that you never needed to be chosen by them to be valuable. You were already enough. Now, the power has shifted. They feel it, they notice the silence, and they realize that the version of you they once knew, the one who waited, cared too much, and sought closure, is gone. Suddenly, they are the ones left with unanswered questions. Why aren't they reaching out, and why does it feel like they lost something they didn't even appreciate when they had it? The irony is that by the time they start to wonder, by the time they realize what they lost, it no longer matters. You've outgrown them, evolved into someone they can't even recognize, someone who doesn't need them, doesn't think about them, and doesn't look back. That's the moment they truly lose you, not when they walked away, but when you stopped caring if they ever returned. This is the final stage of transformation, not bitterness, not revenge, just freedom. The kind of freedom that comes when you no longer seek validation from anyone but yourself. When you reach this place, when you genuinely don't care anymore, you don't just win, you rise. You become the one they can't reach, the one who's vanished without a trace. There's a moment in every journey when everything changes, not slowly, not with effort, but all at once. Like a flame that burns out in an instant, like a star that collapses into something unrecognizable. You don't notice it at first, but one day, you wake up, and something that once consumed your thoughts no longer holds weight. The questions fade, the longing disappears, and just like that, you're free. In that pivotal moment, they experience a profound shift, as if an unseen connection that once linked you both has suddenly severed. At that instant, you are no longer present in their thoughts, their reality, or their sphere of influence. They instinctively reach for their phone, hoping to find some sign of you, but there is nothing. They begin to scroll through shared memories, attempting to recapture moments that have slipped away from them, only to be met with a sense of hollowness. The presence they once took for granted has transformed into an absence that looms large in their mind. It's important to note that it wasn't your silence that caught their attention, rather, it was your complete withdrawal. You didn't linger, you didn't cling to hope, and you certainly didn't leave behind any hints for them to follow. You walked away so decisively that the mere thought of reconnecting with you now seems utterly unattainable. This is the moment when they begin to feel the weight of regret, uncertainty, and the stark realization that the door they believed would always remain open has now firmly shut. This is a critical juncture where many individuals falter. When they sense this change, they often return, expecting to find you in the same place they left you. However, you are no longer there, not because you were engaging in some sort of game or seeking revenge, but because you have evolved into something far beyond the confines of the past that once defined you. They reach out, but their hands grasp only at emptiness. You have transcended your previous self, you have become untouchable. And that transformation, more than anything else, is what will linger in their memory long after you have moved on.